another one for safety. Ah, shit. Ah, God damn it. Tear, damn it. There you go. You know, if you told me that in December 2021 I would come back to YouTube by doing a review of a gay witch show, I think you probably study a bit too much chemistry. Anyways, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome back to another video on this channel. Now, this one's a bit of a different video. I know, like, if you've seen the stuff that I've done, it's Minecraft or like some cinematic projects that if you know me very well, you know that I've done. And if you haven't checked it out, go check it out in the link in the description. It's quite cool. Anyways, so yeah, I'm doing a review of a show that I watched back in June of 2023 called The Our House. Now, The Our House is a Disney TV show that follows the journey of Lucy the Human, who is a teenage girl who stumbles upon a realm filled with demons and witches and monsters that are apparently ruled by some despotic emperor, apparently. Now, this isn't my typical kind of show that I usually watch. If you know me, like, you know the kind of... I'm like just a sci-fi nerd who's like super into science and like STEM in general, so like it's science, tech, engineering and math. So this isn't the kind of stuff that I usually watch. So to give you a quick list of what I usually watch, I have so far watched For All Mankind, which is the Apple TV Plus show following an alternate history where mankind's first man on the moon is from Russia instead of the United States. The Expanse, which follows the journey of mankind in the 23rd century when humans have colonized the entire solar system. Invasion, which follows the journey of a bunch of people trying to survive an alien invasion. Stranger Things, you know what that is. Halo, I hate it. Inside Job, which is basically just like a satirical show about a shadow government who's just like ruling the world but just doing it in a very poor manner. Severance, which is a very interesting show on Apple TV Plus as well, which follows the journey of a man who has split his identity into two, where one side is his work life and one side is his personal life. Chernobyl, you know what that is. Mr. Robot, which is basically this really big hacker show that I haven't finished watching yet, so I don't know how to summarize it properly yet. Anyway, so clearly The Our House doesn't fit any of these categories. All these shows are all like sci-fi or like just straight up documentaries and stuff. It's just nerd shit. Also, yes, I am using a Surface. I know. Developers. Of course, you see this and you're wondering like, okay, so if you're the sci-fi guy, then how the hell did you even come across the show in the first place? Well, it all started with a man by the name of Aaron Hansen, which if you don't know is part of the Game Grumps, which is a very big channel on YouTube. And you know, one day I was just like scrolling through Twitter, X. I was scrolling through it, and then I came across a tweet where he's like, just like eye emoji, and it's like a poster of like some animated show that I haven't heard of before. And apparently I looked at comments, and apparently he voiced someone in the show, which is pretty cool, I guess. I didn't know he did voice acting prior to this, so because I'm a relatively new fan of his, so I saw that and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Then I began doing a bit more research, and then apparently this isn't actually the first time I've seen this show. The first time I've ever come across this show ever was when I was scrolling through YouTube one day, and on the recommended feed I came across this video where like one of the characters has like a voice filter on it. I don't know why that popped up in my feed. It was just there, and I just clicked on it because I was bored, and I was like, oh, okay, sure. But then now looking back, I was like, oh yeah, I've seen this show before. But then I also do a bit more digging, and apparently this show did incredibly well in the US. And despite it being a kids show, a lot of people my age watch it. I mean, not necessarily those locally in my country, Singapore, but apparently a lot of Americans watched it. So I saw this, I was like, okay, this seems interesting. Is it like some sort of like Gravity Falls situation where it's like, oh, like it's like a kids show, but everyone still likes it despite being like grown up and stuff. So I decided, you know what, let's just take the leap of faith. I've been watching a whole bunch of like more like mature shows and not mature as in like sus stuff, but just more mature as in like more like real and hard-hitting shows. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a watch. But before I give my review of this show, I must preface this. I am not a professional reviewer. This is the first time I'm doing any of this. Hence the reason why I keep looking at my watch, because oh no, Siri, shut the hell up.
Expect cloudy skies starting the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm previewing the camera through my watch, so I've never done anything like this before. This whole thing is just as scuffed as the fact that I've duct taped myself as a bit. So yeah, If I misinterpret the show in some way, and if I made a mistake here and there, please tell me, especially if you watched the show before. And with that, let's dive into the show. Because let me tell you, if you haven't watched it yet and you don't plan on doing so, trust me, your expectations of what this show is about is not even close to what it actually is. And even with all that, I still recommend that you go watch it first before you watch this video. And with that, let's move on to reviewing Season 1 of the show.
Who dares intrude upon I, the King of
Demons! Ida, he's so cute! Who's the little guy? Who's the little guy? Is it you? Is it you? No! I don't know who your little guy is! Ida, who is this monster?
Okay, before I review Season 1, let's have a look at what happened in it. Season 1 starts off with how Luz ended up in the demon realm, where she kinda screwed around in school and found out, and now she's being sent to a correction camp in the summer. Now she was about to go for it when suddenly she was robbed by an owl that stole her shit. She follows the owl through another portal and ends up in a place called the Boiling Owls, which is a place on the demon realm filled with boiling oceans and orange plants. After getting away from a bunch of guards that were chasing her, we are then introduced to Eadling Clawthorn, Hootie, the living manifestation of the Duolingo owl, but stuck in a door, and King. No, that's his legal actual first name. However, before she returns to Earth, Ida asks her to help her do a favor. But she somehow ends up starting a prison riot because the prisoners were locked up for no reason. After helping Ida, Luz decides to stay in the demon realm for the summer. And within the next few episodes throughout the course of Season 1, we see her dive into some small adventures and get to know more about the characters. We see her meet up with people like Willow, Gus, and Amity, who are students at Hexside, which is a school of magic, only to be subsequently banned from said school. We also discover Ida's persona. We also learn about the different types of magic present that have been divided into different covens. We also see her literally turn her house into a mecha. Then we also see conflicts between Luz and Amity that totally does not hint at any sort of relationship whatsoever. Luz eventually gets enrolled into Hexside, ignoring the fact that that school probably has a whole bunch of safety violations. A book fair. Yeah, just that. We also see her learning spells. We see King, for some reason, being a bloody mathematician of all things. We also see King and Luz slowly develop to become siblings. We also see Luz and her friends somehow travel into people's minds without invading their privacy whatsoever. We also see a dance between Luz and Amity that, once again, totally does not hint at any sort of relationship whatsoever. We also see her have beef with a pink-colored asshole. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have phrased it that way. Luz then tries to find a cure for Ida's persona, but ends up being caught by Dream, who ends up capturing Ida and nearly killing her by turning her to stone, only for Luz and King to swoop in and team up with Lilith. Oh yeah, Lilith is Ida's sister who joined Dream's army of stands, which is why they don't talk anymore cause Ida ain't into that shit. And then the gang subsequently save Ida, whilst also destroying Luz's only way back home to Earth, which is complicated since last I checked, building a wormhole between dimensions isn't exactly something that we can do yet, unless you play Kerbal Space Program, and I'm actually working on a playthrough series of that game right now. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, stay tuned and subscribe. Disclaimer, KSP does not have wormholes, at least I don't think there are wormholes. I mean, you could probably achieve it with mods, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's all just the outline. There are way more details that I did not get into. As a whole, Season 1 felt like your average Disney TV show with its 20-minute episodes, with like 1 or 2 small adventures each, with occasional moments here and there where the character does or says something that you just simply do not expect at all from a kid's show.
I'm really sorry I pulled you guys into this. We should have just kept a low profile. Basha could get away with murder if she wanted to.
What's this? Basha got away with murder? I can't say I approve, but at least she's trying new things.
Which is pretty funny. Although some episodes definitely felt a bit generic, or I hate to say this, boring, such as like the body swap episode and the Grudgeby episode, because I mean, the Grudgeby one is just straight up like the whole trope of like, protagonist goes against stupid bully in school trope. There were also quite a few episodes where they had some really good character moments and some cool looking scenes, such as when King explained to Luz why he screwed up her chances at being a famous author, when Luz and Amity had that dance that was just so well animated, seeing Willow and Amity get back together after having beef with each other for so long, as well as King running from the owl beast being smoothly animated for some reason. Aside from that, there were just some scenes that were just, you know, cute and funny, such as when King had a whole army of dolls, don't ask how, watch the show. When King tried to tame Ida's persona, I should start calling it that. When King did his scream of rage at the playground.
Oh man, here we go. King's squeak of rage.
like a little tea kettle.
Okay, I think it's pretty obvious which is my favorite character. Although I'll get into the reasons later, cause that relies on some elements of the next 2 seasons. Alongside all of this going on, we also see Luz begin to harness these like magic glyphs that seem to have been lost to time until Luz comes along and discovers them again. And throughout the show, we see her harness all 4 of them, which is the light glyph, the ice glyph, the plant glyph, and the fire glyph. And she begins using these as self-defense, which is pretty cool, but then again, we see this being put to full use in the later seasons. All in all, I can't really say too much about Season 1 since I personally feel that things really start getting really epic in the later seasons. Don't get me wrong, Season 1 wasn't bad, but it feels like it serves mostly for world building as well as to introduce viewers to the chaotic and mysterious world of the demon realm that we will soon deal with in later seasons, such as showing the tyrannical nature of the Emperor, as well as the fact that everything we see in the demon realm is set on the corpse of this massive bloody creature called a Titan, a race of creatures that used to roam the planet before something happened that led to their extinction. Apparently all life in the Boiling Isles, so like witches, demons, and monsters, all originated from said corpse, and because of that, everyone kind of worships the Titan, so instead of saying, oh my god, or god damn it, they say, oh my Titan, or Titan damn it. So overall, even though Season 1 is not as good as the later seasons, I still think it brings a whole lot to the table with its character building and world development that is fascinating for me, but maybe boring for others. The scenes that involve the characters in action are really well animated, and the backgrounds can sometimes be very detailed, that like you could literally spend hours just gazing at them and looking out for Easter eggs or anything that would suggest anything more about the characters. And because of that, it really cements the realness of the show. I'm not trying to say that the demon realm exists though, let me be clear. And what I mean to say is that it just feels like the world could exist, like it feels very fleshed out. Actually, now that I've mentioned it, the characters do mention that within the show, the whole reason the concept and mythology of demons and monsters and witches even exist in our world is because of stuff in the demon realm bleeding into the human realm by chance, and we'll get into the reason how in a bit. And people eventually stumble across the stuff that leaks in, and then they turn those into the stories that we all know about like demons and witches and monsters, which is a pretty cool concept. Anyways, as Gold Mighty Guy, the amateur show reviewer now somehow, I'd like to give Season 1 of The Owl House a decent 2.5 out of 5. The pros are that it has some great world building, realistic character development, and some really well animated action scenes, with its cons being that it can have occasionally generic tropes. And with that, on to Season 2! Okay, let's slow down a bit, but so before I continue, right, let's first address the elephant in the room, or at least for some of you it's an elephant, and that is the LGBTQ plus representation in the show. Now, where I live, Singapore, most people of my age, like myself, are pretty chill about it and are strong supporters of the LGBTQ plus community, even though most of us, myself included, are straight. Whereas older folks, which do take up a larger percentage of our population, unfortunately can't concur. However, as someone who spends a buttload of time on the internet, especially Twitter, X, and Reddit, I have a suspicion as to why. I suspect one of the reasons is that many where I live who are against it, or at the very least are hesitant about the idea, is because they see what Western netizens are doing, and a small minority of LGBTQ plus members can be very preachy about getting those on the other side to support them. Heck, some even go to the lengths to be like complete like assholes to get those on the other side to support them. Because of that, the small minority of asshats ends up being the loudest, and thus, seeing this, these people get the impression that LGBTQ plus people are all assholes, which obviously isn't true. This is a very similar situation to the whole like, oh, video games cause violence myth that still kind of floats around to this very day. Like, many people think that just because violent kids play video games, it means that video games cause violence, when in reality it's because of the parents that they are violent. Hence, when it comes to LGBTQ+, I think many don't support it because they are misinformed about the whole situation, and that the message that the aforementioned assholes are trying to convey ends up whooshing over many people's heads due to the preachy and insensitive attitude that the message contains. Again, not saying that LGBTQ+ is bad, let me be very clear about that. It's just that the approach and behavior that some supporters have are just straight up inappropriate. For example, can you imagine if like every day there are ads playing 24/7 on TV telling you to say like, practice the 3 R's? Like, again, nothing wrong with the concept, in fact it's beneficial. But stuff like this can get so damn annoying that you just straight up refuse to do it. So again, there's no problem about the topic itself. The problem is how it's being conveyed by some in the LGBTQ plus community. So, after saying all of that, what the hell am I getting at? Well, the show sets a very good example at sending a message about this topic without being overly preachy about it. Throughout the show, we see that the relationship between Luz and Amity, alongside other relationships and characters we will see later, are all seen as normal, almost as if they aren't even there at all. And this is a great representation because the show's characters aren't going around preaching about this or like calling it out all the time. After all, that's the end goal, right? One day it will be great to see a place where such relationships are also treated as normally as heterosexual relationships. And this show does a fantastic job at showing that to the audience whilst also subtly sending that message without ever saying anything about the matter, like anything. In fact, this show is the first ever Disney animated show to unambiguously portray such relationships, and the first one to have the main character be a part of the LGBTQ plus community, which I think is such a ballsy and amazing thing that the show writers were able to pull off at all. Anyways, with all of that being said, let's actually move on to season 2.
Hootie, would you like to accompany us?
Oh, get ready!
Porta Hootie! Reporting for Hootie!
Season 2 starts off where we left off. After the battle, Lilith now lives in the Owl House since she essentially betrayed her own government. In this season, we get to go on more adventures and have more character development moments, such as meeting Hunter, aka the Golden Guard who works for Dream, meeting Amity's mother, who is the CEO of a Chinese factory of robots, which also almost kills Luz. The sisters learning glyph magic since they can't do their own magic anymore after they decided to share Ida's first curse amongst each other. King nearly getting cryogenic therapy, King discovering the truth about his origins and having a mental breakdown at the age of 8-ish. We'll get into that in a bit. Ida's Facebook mom being scammed, Hunter and Luz screwing around with each other, meeting Rain, Ida's ex, and seeing their backstory, King sending out a video message in search of his dad, Hootie somehow making the most plot-relevant episode in the up to date, Hunter and Amity fighting in Eclipse Lake, Luz building a temporary portal to meet her mom and a basilisk named V who became her doppelganger while she was gone. Yeah, I know. Spreading anti-government propaganda at a parade. Frigging time travel, where we learn that Dream is apparently a British man from the 1600s who got stuck in the demon realm and used magic to stay alive for very long. Hunter meeting Willow and almost forcing her sports team to work for Dream. Amity and Luz joining in WWE. Traveling into people's minds again, only this time it's Dream and Hunter sees the horrors in the mind of that green bitch. King going to meet his family, only to discover that they were actually probably the ones that killed his family in the first place. Because apparently, King is the last freaking Titan in existence and is the son of the very land he lives on. Actually, now that I think about it, that makes him the Jesus of the demon realm. After all of that, we then see Luz and King return to the Boiling Owls, where we see that Dream has become full-on British Hitler and begins his plan called the Day of Unity to wipe out all witches on the Boiling Isles. Because of that, the Owl family and Rain's newly formed rebellion, the Cats, I'm not kidding, tries to stop this only for the plan to fail. But fear not though, Luz is able to get to Dream and stall him for a bit while King uses his newly found Titan magic to release someone known as the Collector, who kills Dream and stops the spell from being used to kill the witches. Yay! Only problem now is that the Collector is essentially an immature godchild with no concept of death whatsoever. So they begin turning the Boiling Owls into their playground. No, literally. Seeing this, King decides to send Luz and her friends to Earth through the rebuilt but unstable portal that Dream made to prevent them from being hurt, which stops them from returning to the demon realm entirely. And that's it for season 2! We have a lot to talk about. First up, let's talk about character development. God, where do I even start? In season 1, we see that King was just a young child who thought that he was the king of demons and wanted to be treated like royalty, like a ruler. Then, when Ida told him his true origins and how he didn't come from royalty and was just found by Ida one day on an island, he has a full-on panic attack and breaks down grappling and trying to grab at this new information. Because all this time he thought it was something greater, but in the end he was just a demon whose species is unknown and was left behind by his family.
Ah, no! Keep that thing away from me! It's messing with my head!
King, it's gonna be okay.
You're all just making fun of me like usual, right? No. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No! King!
Keep in mind, he's only 8-ish, so this is a lot for him to take. He then decides to begin his search for his dad and also announcing his adoption in the Cawthorn family, to the surprise of Ida. Actually, considering the Emperor's dictatorship, it's surprising how he was able to legally call himself king in the first place. He also begins to discover his own magic abilities, such as his sonic shout that is very powerful for his size.
We have to destroy this thing. Then step back.
He eventually does come into contact with a group of people on the other side of the planet called the Titan Trappers, claiming to be his family, only to discover that they were going to kill him for being the last living Titan. Again, another major blow for King, because he no longer wants to be a ruler, he just wants to be a normal guy.
You know, Steve, I always wanted to have power, and to command respect, and fear! So now that I kinda have all that, why does my stomach feel all... ugh?
Wants can change. So can people.
I don't want people to see me as a big scary monster anymore.
But before he could think more though, the day of Unity comes and he has no choice but to release the Collector and save Luce and her friends. But before doing so, he tells her that
Luce, I'm so happy I had you as a big sister.
No! King!
dude, that little guy needs a lot of therapy now. Like there's just so much trauma all around. Like, dude, when I was 8, I was pretending that my school was like the Titanic and it was sinking every time the recess bell rang. And other students would just like stare at me, looking at me like panicking. I mean, I was obviously wasn't like full-on panic attack panic, but I was still not okay. You see why he's my favorite character? Cause he matured so much from season 1. He turned from what seemed like this like generic Disney side character that served as like comic relief through his ridiculous like antics, to becoming a major plot point in the story, where he discovers his origins and decides to not be a tyrant anymore and help others wherever he can, even despite his young age. And keep in mind, this all happens in the span of like what, 2 to 3 months in the show? It's kind of similar to my own experiences in the sense that I used to be super like insensitive and immature all the way up to when I was like 12 or 13ish, which really impacted my social life because most other classmates did not want to like hang out with me for being so childish, with only a few of my classmates accepting me for like who I am. It was only when I was 14 that I really began seeing the world for what it is, and I began to do what I can to help out, even if it's a hassle. It's especially so when I was in junior college, where I wanted to help others out wherever I can. Look, I'm still far from perfect, but I definitely have matured so much within these past few years due to the fact that I can now like consider things at a more like macroscopic level and see the bigger picture. Anyways, enough about me. Luce and Emily's relationship finally solidified when Hootie eventually pushes them to admit their feelings for one another and decides to make things official. We then subsequently see the two of them supporting each other during tough times, such as when Luce was feeling down on the anniversary of her dad's death. Yeah, he did, by the ways. As well as when Emily's mom was just being a Karen. Eventually, in the finale, we see the two of them finally go for the kiss, which the Owl House fanbase was definitely cheering about. However, we also learn about Luce's insecurities and how she tends to blame herself for the mistakes that she did not make, such as when she discovers that the British man from the 1600s that she helped during that time travel episode ended up being Bellows. After that incident, she felt like she caused the Emperor's existence in the first place, even though it was really just a case of ignorance. Aside from Luce, we see that Hunter also discovers a horrifying truth, which is that he's a freaking clone of Bellows' brother that Bellows killed a long time ago. We'll get into that later, which causes Hunter to panic and flee the Emperor's coven. So yeah, trauma all around. Anyways, we also see that Ida comes to terms with her curse and begins to control it to her liking, which allows her to turn into this really cool looking like form using a curse. She calls it the harpy form, which looks pretty cool. Oh, and by the way, what Ada did, as well as Lucid Amity making things official and King's discovery of his sonic powers, all occurred in a single episode, which is the one that I mentioned earlier about Hootie making the most plot-relevant episode to date. Again, don't know how that happened, because when people first watched it, they thought it was a filler episode, but then as the episode progressed, they're like, oh shit, this is actually significant as hell. Now there's a whole lot more I can talk about in terms of character development, but we will be here forever if I did, so let's move on to the lore, which is the thing that I'm most excited about. In terms of lore, we take a much deeper dive into the nature of the government in this world, as well as the nature of the Titans. With the time travel episode, it is revealed that Emperor Bellows was a human from a British colony located in Connecticut in the 1600s called Philip Witherbane, who somehow stumbled across the demon realm and discovers a village full of witches and demons. Now, seeing this, he decides to try and rid the realm of witches. Why? Well, in real life, in the 1600s were also a time when the Salem witch trials were ongoing, where there were like a series of like hearings and prosecutions of people accused of witchcraft in colonial Massachusetts between February 1692 and May 1693. So in the show's canon, it seems like said trials occurred in Connecticut as well, and so Philip decided to kill witches without a second thought, for the benefit of mankind. To do so, he then began learning more about magic and discovered the glyphs, although he did take far longer than Luce did, and you'll see why in Season 3. Eventually, he discovers that he could use the souls of palisman, which is the staffs that witches and demons use, to essentially achieve immortality. Alongside that, we also see that he was eventually able to rise to power by claiming that he can speak to the Titan, and that using different types of magic simultaneously was against the Titan's will, and convinced people that by restricting their usage of magic into specific categories, they were complying with the Titan. And seeing how religious people were back then, and even now, they complied, and eventually Philip rose to power under the new identity of Emperor Bellows. Dream! Alongside Bellows, we also learn a little bit more about the nature of the Titans. The Titan is apparently pretty powerful. Like, their blood is the very substance that enables multi-dimensional travel and time travel. And now that we know that King is a Titan, we also know that they are able to use their voice to literally level entire buildings, as well as how the Titans are capable of trapping literal gods in discs that can only be undone by another Titan. So yeah, when it came to Season 2, they were not holding back on the lore, and I love that because I'm a sucker for lore. You can thank MatPat for getting me into the FNAF lore in the early days, and I'm still in that community. It's just that the lore has just gotten so confusing that I don't understand what the hell's happening anymore.
What if Shadow Bonnie is actually Darkiplier, because they're both shadow people from the Shadow Universe, which probably means that Yu-Gi-Oh's involved too.
Anyways, I especially love the parallels that the show draws with reality, such as how Bellows deceiving people that he can talk to their god is literally just how many prophets and religious figures in the past and present claim that they can talk to God, or how the end of the world is nigh. Additionally, the show also draws parallels between Bellows lying and manipulating his people, and in real life where there are many governments and regimes that legitimately still do this kind of crap. The plot thickens! So yeah, the lore is pretty bloody awesome, and I love the fact that the show isn't afraid to dive into dark topics despite its age rating. Hell, this shit has like topics like panic attacks, insecurities, censorships, restrictions of free speech and genocides. Like, it's crazy. Now onto the animations and scenes. Just like Season 1, we get some incredible shots and funny moments such as the fight between Hunter and Amity, Hootie's rampage in the Covenant Day Parade, Hootie detaching from his door, as well as that super wide shot of the Day of Unity spell ongoing, which looks so cool. Okay, I'm not trying to say that genocide is cool. I'm not trying to say that. It's just a really well-made shot. We even get some really emotional and hard-hitting scenes, like Luce being pulled away from her mom as the portal closes, King's final line in the Fizzard, as well as Ada nearly sacrificing herself at one point. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. And all of that is just scratching the surface, because there's just so much more to go into that I wish I had time to talk about. Overall, Season 2 takes everything fans loved about the show and cranks it up all the way to 11, whilst making the show more unique in its regard and retaining the humor that fans love. Season 2 was definitely a massive improvement over the first in nearly every aspect. Really the only issue I had is that the plot really sped up towards the end of the season, but later you'll see why that's so. To conclude, as Goat Guy, the amateur show reviewer somehow, I'd give Season 2 of The Owl House an excellent 4 out of 5. The pros are that it has an expanded lore and much deeper character insights and more real-world connections, with the cons being that it's just a wee bit rushed at the end. And with that, on to the final season. Whoa, there, okay, slow down, hold your horses, hold on. Before we move on, let me just really just quickly have a look at how long Season 3 was. Wait. Only 3 45-minute episodes? What? Do people even say that anymore? Do people say what? Okay, let's figure out why. So apparently, just before the development of the second half of Season 2 began, the production team was told that Season 3 was going to be shortened and it will be the final season of the show. Apparently, the reason Disney execs shortened it was because the show did not fit the Disney brand and that one of the execs just didn't like it. I bet those execs are probably regretting their decision right now because of the show's viewership towards the end was incredible. Now, I'm not the kind of guy to speculate and start bloody conspiracies, but considering the topics that the show dwells in, I have a suspicion as to why the execs did what they did. But at the end of the day, we will never know what's really going on in the minds of the empty skulls of the Disney execs' heads. However, even with such setbacks, once we get into Season 3, you will see that the production team really outdid themselves with how well it turned out nonetheless. So with that, let's actually move on to the final season of The Owl House.
Mama Dahlia, we need to feed the owl beast. How about pizza pickles?
I told you before, Collector, I could be much more used to you than being a Mama Dahlia. Maybe we can talk about remaking the Boiling Isles into something bigger and better.
Pizza bagels!
So again, just like Season 2, Season 3 starts off where we left off, with Luz and company arriving at her mom's house and staying there for the next few months, while trying to figure out how to get a working portal back to the demon realm, but also spending some time having fun. Eventually, they do discover a scroll that leads them to the location of a hidden vial of Titan's blood nearby. On Halloween, they were able to recover the vial when Hunter suddenly gets possessed by Dream after some of the goop from his body fell on him as Luz and the others were fleeing to the portal in the previous season. After some fighting, Dream drowns Hunter and was able to use the vial to open a portal to the demon realm. Fear not though, Flapjack, Hunter's palisman, sacrifices themselves for Hunter and he subsequently comes back to life. RIP Flapjack, you will be remembered for your service to our nation. Luz and company, alongside with her mom, then enter the portal to stop Bellows. When they arrive, they see that the Collector has turned almost everyone into puppets and decided to do a city-wide roleplay, with King by his side and trying his really damn best to ensure that they don't accidentally kill anyone. Luz and company then proceed to Hexside, where the pink three-eyed asshole from earlier apparently rules over the school now for somehow, I don't know how. When Luz tries to get help, the three-eyed asshole refuses. But then, okay, I should not use that term. However, her sidekick, who's apparently Kikimora, which is, by the way, is one of Dream's stands, began attacking the Luz and her friends, which eventually led to Willow and Luz just begin feeling really shit. And because of this, Hunter and Gus decide to go and help Willow out while Luz's mom comforts her. While all this shit's going on, King, Ida, and Lilith discuss on how to take the Collector down. But King decides to try to talk things out cause, I mean, the dude's just a kid. However, the Collector, under the pressure of Dream possessing Rain's puppet now, was apparently listening to this without context and thought that King was betraying their trust. Once Luz and company defeat Kiki, they arrive at Collie's castle when Luz finally got her own palisman, only to then be captured by the Collector. Luz, Ida, and King are then put into these nightmare dreamscapes where they were just going through their worst fears and insecurities, while the rest of her friends were turned into puppets. Eventually, all of them got out of their predicament using the light glyph because apparently Titan magic is more powerful and thus can counter the Collector's magic. Seeing this, the Collector gets unhappy and puts Ida, Lilith, and King through some of his games. I don't know how the hell he knows what Pac-Man is, but I guess maybe King taught him, but then even King hasn't really seen it yet unless maybe Luz told him during the time when we aren't looking, I guess. However, the trio were able to win all of the games. The Collector, now sad, opens up and reveals that apparently they used to play with baby titans when they were around, when one day the archivists, which are his siblings, took them away, and King's dad, filled with rage, thought that the Collector was the culprit and steal him away. When Dream found the Collector, he promised that he'd release them eventually, only to not fulfill said promise. Hence why Collector is so desperate to make friends and why he hates being lied to. Luz, Ida, and King then helps the Collector understand some social norms by taking them on a tour around the Boiling Owls. However, Dream takes over the heart of the Titan's corpse and begins using his foot fungus to take over and wipe out the life on the Boiling Owls. The Collector innocently tries to collect with Dream, only to then almost be blasted away by him. Fortunately, Luz was able to swoop in and move them out of the way. Unfortunately, she got hit and eventually disintegrates into nothing but light, which is, by the way, is oddly appropriate because Luz is actually Spanish for light, or something along the lines of that. I have to check. Seeing this, King and Ida go completely feral and begins to try and take on Dream on their own, while the Collector tries again and again but fails to bring Luz back. However, don't worry, Luz's story isn't over yet, as we see her sink into this strange liquid in this strange place before a 3-clawed hand pulls her out. Turns out, it's King's dad, and he's still alive, kinda, but is stuck in a place called the In-Between, an interdimensional region where he has been watching King over since he died. He explained that he regretted trapping Collie all those years ago and that he's thankful that Luz has been a sister figure for his son. However, with Luz feeling like she's just been as bad as Dream, Papa Titan, that's his name according to the credits, assures her that Dream is just a big ol' bitch. So he decides to give Luz his remaining magic temporarily to come back to life and beat Dream. And so she returns to the world of the living as this cool looking human-titan hybrid. Together with Ida and King, they fight Dream's goop, while the Collector while the Collector goes and saves those in the castle. Eventually, Luz wins and rips Dream away from the Titan's heart. Dream attempts to pretend that what he did was out of his control, but obviously no one's gonna buy that bullshit, and he gets stomped to death. I'm not even kidding. Then the remains of the Titan's magic and soul leaves Luz and ascends into the stars and finally passing on, while King gets to see his father for the first and last time. Poor guy. The gang eventually return to the Owl House where the Collector bids his farewell before leaving for the stars. Luz meets up with her friends again, and Luz's mom, Ida, and King finally meet up for the first time. Unfortunately, with the Titan now gone, the glyph magic is now also all gone, leaving Luz with no means of conducting her own magic except with her new talisman known as String Bean. We then get a time skip to I think 4 years later, where we see Luz moving to the Demon Realm to study all of the available mages at Ida's new university. What the hell? Don't get me wrong, really passionate and really committed, but Jesus Christ, you want to take all the majors? Okay, maybe there aren't a lot of majors there, so maybe it's possible, but Jesus Christ, all of them? Dude, even in JC, I was already dying in JC. You want to take on all of the majors in a university? We also get to see how everyone is doing all those years later, as well as see how much they've all grown. And damn, Gus really gotta glow up. Eventually, when Luz arrives into the Demon Realm, her friends throw her a quinceanera, which if you don't know is the definition insert here. Or as they call it, a quinceanera, since King seems to be the one organizing it. Apparently, Luz didn't get the time to celebrate her 15th birthday when she helped rebuild the Boiling Owls, so they decided to throw her one anyways once she graduated from the school on Earth. King also gets to show Luz that his powers were getting stronger, and now he has his own glyph language for her to use, which is pretty damn cool. The Collector then comes by to do a light show for everyone at the party, and before they, as well as us viewers, are about to leave, everyone waves at the skies and bids their farewell. And with that, we've come to the end of the Owl House. Woo! That last season was so short, but it was so packed. So let's first talk about the characters. In some characters, we see that they've really grown to become much better than who they were when the show started. From Luz being more confident to be herself around others and stand up for herself, to King taking things far less violently and willing to do what he can to help others out and give them a chance. Even for Belos, his character progression was also really well written. From being this seemingly untouchable and maleficent emperor to being revealed to be this miserable and lame British dude. Oh, look at me, a little bottle of water. That was a joke, by the way. I do not mean to offend any British viewers. I'm just around. Even characters that only appear briefly are still very interesting, such as the Collector's predicament during the days of the Titans, and how they eventually take steps to become more sensible of others around them. Heck, even Papa Titan, who by the way is the character that Erin Hansen voices, and who only appeared for a few minutes in one episode. was like such a likable character for the whole like dad aesthetic he went with. Because at the beginning we see that the Titan was seen as this like this once malevolent and like godly being that people worship to hell, yet when we see him in the in-between, he's just this chill dude looking out for his kid. Which, by the way, was actually called out in the previous season.
Belos is supposed to know everything, but why should he know what the Titan wants? Maybe the Titan doesn't even know what he wants. Maybe he's just some normal guy, you know?
However, other characters did not nearly get as good of a closure as others, such as the whole like Hexite subplot with like Matt and Boscha and a bunch of other side characters that didn't really feel like anything about them even changed all that much. But then again, the show's writers expected a full like 20 episodes of season 3 and more, but they were dealt with shit by the execs, so I can't exactly really blame them for that. But of course, aside from the characters, there's also the whole bunch of lore that does provide some answers to our questions, but also does raise even more questions. Firstly, we learn a little bit more about the backstory of Philip Witherbane and how he stumbled upon the demon realm. During his time on Earth centuries ago, apparently he had an older brother named Caleb Witherbane, the original person that Hunter is a clone of, by the way. One day, Caleb stumbles across a witch named Evelyn Clawthorne, yes, the same Clawthorne family, and eventually they fall in love and Caleb moves with her into the demon realm. Philip can't handle the fact that Caleb had Riz, so he followed him into the demon realm and eventually kills him. Fortunately, before Philip did that though, Caleb and Evelyn decided to have kids, so although Caleb is gone, the Clawthorne bloodline lives on to today with Ida and Lilith. So yeah, Ida and Lilith have a little bit of human DNA in their genome, which is crazy. Alongside that, we also get to learn more about the cause of the Titans' near extinction. During the time of the Titans, the planet was just like Earth, with green flora. We know this because King's Birth Island is the only place in the entire planet with naturally occurring greenery, and normal oceans. One day, as the Titans were living peacefully, the Archivists, a bunch of star gods, came across them. Now, we don't know what the preceding events were, but eventually a war between the two races began, and the Titans' numbers fell. Eventually, Papa Titan had no choice but to hide his egg away and conceal the tower that it is stored in with spells such that only another Titan or someone given permission or blessing by another Titan can find it. The Titans then eventually wipe out all the Titans by scorching the oceans and forcing life to adapt to harsher weather conditions like boiling rains and turning the planet into what it is today. Actually, now that I think about it, I wonder how that's even possible. Like, since the temperatures of the Isles seems average or at least bearable for Luz to survive in, I wonder how boiling rains and oceans even develop without the surface temperatures just falling under the surface temperatures of Venus. But okay, then again, this is a world full of magic, so maybe there is no explanation, or maybe there is an explanation, but it's all like magic based, so who the hell knows. Anyway, scientific improbability aside, after Papa Titan was killed, apparently his heart just never stopped beating, while the rest of his body decomposed and gave way to new life forms. This resulted in him ending up in this like this interstellar situation where he's like stuck in a high dimension watching over his son and unable to communicate to the world of the living. By the way, that movie is amazing. I just want it is okay, screw it. It is my favorite movie of all time. Interstellar was incredible. I loved it a lot. Okay, jokes aside, the lore also provides us with many questions about the nature of the Archivists and the Titans. Like, how did they both come about? What were the Titans like? What was their culture? Why did the Archivists commit mass genocide? Is it because the Titans were more powerful than them? Honestly, there's just so much room for like a future spin-off about their lore. Actually, there's one more thing I need to mention before we move on. Remember how I said that it took Philip longer than Luz to like eventually find all the glyphs and use them in combos? God, I just broke my voice there. It's implied that it's because Papa Titan, upon seeing how insufferable of a person Philip is, decided to conceal the glyphs from him as much as possible. Whereas with Luz, Papa Titan decided to show them to her in the hopes of protecting King's only sibling, especially after seeing that Luz is in no way as bad or as cunning as Philip. Now let's talk about the scenes in this season, especially those in the finale. In the first episode, we get to see the gang having fun on Earth and bonding together over the course of the year, with Luz coming out to her mom, dressing up for Halloween, as well as seeing the witches get to learn more about the cultures on Earth. It's pretty fun, and I wish we got to see them embark on these adventures over the course of like multiple episodes. But then again, the Disney execs goofed up hard. We also get to see some really cool scenes, such as the small fight between the gang and Belos in Hunter's body. Again, just like the previous seasons, it was really well animated and really fun to watch. Aside from that, we also got to see Philip having to deal with what is either Caleb's straight up ghost or like a manifestation of him in Philip's mind. This could either suggest that Caleb has been haunting Philip for centuries up to his death, Or it could suggest that there is still some corner of Philip's mind that knows that what he has done and what he is doing is wrong, which is really interesting if true. Cause when Luz and Hunter were in his mind, we do see that his emotions can manifest into various figures. So with that information, could there have been a part of Philip that like really regretted doing what he has done? I mean, you may never know. And with that, let's move on to the finale. Holy shit! Seeing Luz being killed like that is very unexpected, considering that she's the main character of a PG Disney TV show. Like, even if you knew that just like in other Disney productions she would get revived eventually, it still hits hard to see her body literally like disintegrate like some Infinity War shit. And seeing King and Ida's feral designs is also really cool. I also wanted to point out that when King uses his shield spell for the first time, you can see that the glyphs on it are like a mix of both of his own and his father's glyphs, which is a nice little detail. When Luz comes back in her Titan form, her design also looks amazing. Like, it doesn't lean too far towards like a more creature-like design to convey her Titan nature, or like a flashy, like bright design to convey her power. Instead, it's just something that's like subtle and simple, giving her character room to like express her power through her actions rather than her looks, which she pulls off really, really well. Like, she forms these like big, like massive glyphs and creates like sonic shouts with like Ida and King by her side and to fend off Philip was like such a cool sight to see. And there's also some nice callbacks to the first few episodes of the show during that whole finale scene. I might as well just play the whole damn thing right here, but I probably shouldn't, because I might get copyright strike, but I'll leave some clips here. Honestly, it's best if you just watch it for yourself. And plus, this is on YouTube, it's just right there. And when she gets to Philip at the Titan's heart and she pulls him out, the shot at the end looks astounding and like really like wallpaper worthy. Heck, someone even pointed out that it obeyed the freaking golden ratio. And following alongside all of this, the soundtrack is also like amazing. Like, I'm a sucker for good soundtrack in like games, shows, and like movies. And my YouTube playlist is just like filled to the brim with like soundtracks from shows and movies like Oppenheimer, Interstellar, Minecraft, The Expanse, and many more. Minecraft isn't a show, it's a game. The soundtrack in the finale definitely deserves a place in that playlist for fitting into the scene so well, and also being so unique to the show's like aesthetic and style. Anyways, when Philip ends up as like a miserable blob of goo on the ground, Luz doesn't even like say like some like speech or like catchphrase about how bad he was before killing him. Heck, she wasn't even like the one to deliver the final blow. All she does is just like stare at him and like walks away as King, Ida, and Rain stomp the shit out of him. I love this because I'm not like a fan of like when shows repeat what the audience is saying and is already aware of. Like, it sometimes gets so annoying when that happens because you're just there like, okay, we get it, now just move on already. But with the demise of Philip, the show's writers were aware that we know that Philip is just this like stupid British colonist who wasn't happy that he did not get laid. So seeing Luz simply let him die is just so much more effective. And after all of this, when we see how the characters are doing a few years later, it was really cool and quite emotional as well, surprisingly enough. Like, we see so many of the main cast of characters be put through some tough shit for what seems like years for some viewers. Because keep in mind, the show first aired in like 2020, and to see that they are finally able to live peacefully doing what they wanted and trying to build a better place for themselves and others is just so wholesome. And we get to see so many of their stories come to a nice close. Luz going from being unable to do what she loves without setbacks to her being able to be herself and do what she's always dreamed of doing. Hunter going from living under the abusive pressure of Philip to being able to live his own life the way that he likes. And Willow going from being bullied and shamed to being able to feel more confident in herself, and Amity going from being a selfish prick to being more sensitive and caring to others around her. Like, the list goes on. And in the ending, where everyone looks into the camera and bids farewell to the audience, it's also kind of the show writer's way of saying, thank you for being there all this time throughout the past few years, supporting us even when we were put through the ringer, and kept us going forward to end this story on a high note. Overall, this season, despite being squeezed into just 3 episodes, in fact the whole runtime of this season is just under 2.5 hours, so it's basically just a long movie, it does a really astounding job at helping to end the Our House without making it feel incomplete. Because on paper, when you hear that a show has been shortened from 20 episodes to just 3, you think that it's a recipe for failure. Like, how do you even have like a season-long story in such little time without having an inconclusive ending? Like, it sounds impossible, and yet the writers, like, they did it nonetheless. Of course, if you viewed this season in a pure vacuum and judged it as a regular season of like a regular show, regular show, it's obviously not the best. Again, being only 3 episodes, some characters did not even have like a good closure, and you also feel that like some stuff is being skipped over or pushed aside, such as the montages and the fact that Luce's friends were largely absent in the final battle. Viewing it from this lens, Season 3 would feel a bit rushed, but we consider the shit the writers went through, the adjustments they made to the story when the second half of Season 2 was being produced, as well as them being able to still do the main characters justice and helping them progress and improve in such a little time. It's incredible that Season 3 turned out the way it did. In just 2.5 hours, the season was just as unique, funny, emotional, and entertaining as past seasons, which goes to show how passionate the writers were about this show. Simply put, I'm speechless at how they pulled this off. It's almost concerning that they did so. Like, I hope the animators and writers did not have to like work overtime to make this all possible. So yeah, Season 3 was an awesome climax to the entire show, and it gave us a nice and wholesome conclusion that does give way to future spin-offs, such as maybe a series about King and the Collector and the history of their species, or about the adventures of Luce and Amity's kids, because you know they are probably gonna use their magic to have some, or even a prequel series about Ida and Rain during their days at Hexside. There's just still so much potential for this story and this canon as a whole. Now, of course, not everyone is a fan of the whole happily ever after trope in the ending of Disney shows and movies, but in the case of the Owl House, it has more of an open ending that is disguised as a happy ending. Because again, there are still many plot points that have been left unanswered, such as the beef between the Titans or the Archivists, or how King would live on with the knowledge of being a Titan, or how the Collector is going to deal with the Archivists, and how are they going to ensure that that their brothers and sisters don't return. All in all, Season 3 ended the Owl House in the best way possible given the situation, and also opens up new possibilities in the future for the showrunners and the fans to look forward to. But in the meantime, fans of the show writers will definitely remember the experience they had watching the show for a very long time, myself included. And that means that the fanfics are rolling in hot and fresh, baby! Have you seen AO3? There's like just so much so many like Owl House fanfics on there. I read a few of them like just by curiosity, and like they were actually like really well written. Some are shit, but some are really well done and well thought out. To conclude, as Goat Money Guy, the amateur show reviewer now somehow, I'd give Season 3 of The Owl House an excellent 4.5 out of 5. The pros are that it has an awesome ending battle, emotional character moments, and a nice conclusion to the series, and the cons are that it is a wee bit rushed, but and some characters didn't get a proper closure, but then it's the exec's fault for all of that. Now let's move on to my overall thoughts about the show as a whole.
Ida, King, thank you for everything.
Right back at you, kiddo.
Weirdos?
Weirdos.
As a family show, it does a great job at appealing both a younger audience through the classic one story per episode format, as well as older adults through its humor, more mature topics, as well as its very intriguing lore that has the potential to be expanded in the future. It's a nice relief from watching all like the K-dramas, Hollywood dramas, crappy local productions, as well as the increasingly infuriating amount of shitty Marvel productions. It's kind of like how many older viewers as of recent became obsessed with the Bluey show. And for me, watching the show revived the inner child within me that used to always like lay down in front of the TV after doing homework to watch stuff like Phineas and Ferb, Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, Adventure Time, or just really anything that was on air during that time. While I wouldn't say that this show is essentially a 2020s version of Gravity Falls, which many compare it to, this show has as much passion, effort, story writing, and character development as Gravity Falls, given the situation this show was in, especially considering the developmental circumstances towards the end, as well as the state of the world in the 2020s. The way that this show handles mature and very real topics whilst keeping things PG and not just rubbing them hard in your face makes it enjoyable without making you ponder too much on the problems we face in our increasingly stressful and fragile society, infected by the roots of inflation, corruption, selfishness, and the power incorporated that with deep control over our lives, our emotions, our spending habits, and also we can pay even more to our capitalistic and demonic profit-seeking CEO. Anyways, is the writing perfect? No. There are definitely moments and plot points that need to be more ironed out, and enclosures that shouldn't have been as rushed. But then again, the show's writers were dealt a load of shit by the Disney execs. But despite all that, the show's writers did a good job at making characters like Luce and Amity feel real, like someone could be out there right now that feels and behaves just the same exact way that these characters do, and thus feel more like relatable, that you really feel like connection. But of course, writing isn't just one thing. The voice acting, however, it's so good! Anyways, it's pretty damn good. Like I'm no expertise on voice acting, but they do a really convincing job at selling the characters' emotions, expressions, and jokes. Like the voice actors' voices really suit their characters' vibe and style really well, especially Alex Hirsch, who voices King, who doesn't even move his mouth when talking, and Hootie. And if you hear them in the show...
Private Hootie, today when the felt flew, you showed grit and determination that were instrumental in securing our victory. May I just say, it has been an honor to be your commander.
Sir, the honor is all mine!
Private, our hearts have been touched by fire.
Yeah, Alex has hella range. Oh, and fun fact, Alex is also the creator of Gravity Falls and the voice actor of Grunkle Stan, Seuss, Old Man McGucket, Bill Cipher, and more. And again, if you hear those characters in those shows, you will see that Alex doesn't have a range anymore, he has the entire freaking spectrum. Of course, aside from Alex Hirsch, the other voice actors did an amazing job as well at conveying emotions to a very scary degree. But I can't exactly talk much more since again, I'm not a voice acting expert. Now, on to the juiciest part though, the animation. Now, ignoring the fact that Disney Plus labeled this show as an anime probably by complete accident, in your average episode, sometimes it's just simple and fun, while other times they can be hella wild and chaotic. Honestly, it's a nice throwback to like Disney TV shows we watched as a child for adults like me. Because nowadays we get to see stuff like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse or Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and those have an indescribably like incredible like animations and visual techniques used that elevate the animations from not just a storytelling tool but more of like an experience of their own. Like you can have a whole movie with minimal plot but has the incredible animations like in those movies, and many people would still enjoy it simply for the looks. But of course, for some, having such incredible animations playing all the time might be a bit overwhelming. Not that I feel that way for movies, but I do sometimes get so mesmerized by amazing animations and shots that I get distracted from the plot. With The Owl House, it's simple for the most part and reserves the higher quality anime on ones for the plot relevant scenes, which is great because it kind of creates this black sheep scenario whereby the higher quality animations sell the emotions of the scene so much more due to the fact that it stands out from all of the other scenes, which again does a whole lot for storytelling. And can I just say, when the animators animate on ones, they really step up their game. Like these scenes look bloody amazing, especially in the finale. But even in ordinary scenes without the shine and sprinkles of animating on ones, the animators still put in so much effort into filling the backgrounds with so much detail that makes the world feel so well built and so well thought out. Like it really feels like there could be an alternate universe where this world exists, even despite the whole magic business thing that the show deals with. Speaking of magic, the magic system used in the show is pretty damn good. I keep saying good a lot, but you know what I mean. Like as a man of science, it really feels like the magic in the show is just science that we just don't understand yet. With how there are like categories of magic just like in our worlds, like biology, chemistry, and physics that can work on their own but can also be combined together in specific ways to provide outcomes that can either be beneficial or destructive. You know, when I first began watching it, I thought I would hate it for being like magic. Like, I never liked stuff like Percy Jackson or Harry Potter or anything fantasy in general. Like, I no joke read bloody like sample essays, books from like astrophysicists and like sci-fi books on the regular. So I did not expect to end up liking The Owl House as much as I did, and I think it's because they lay out the magic in the world in a simple and logical manner that isn't confusing with stuff like complicated spell names and like, you know, all that kind of business. You can really see this in the show with its various aspects, such as the specific glyph combinations that Luz uses to provide various outcomes, which is kind of like chemistry, as well as how abomination magic is used as a tool for engineering robotics and other products. Kind of like physics. Heck, someone on Twitter even pointed out that one of the glyph combos used in the show resembles the configuration of a molecular structure. Like, the magic in this world feels just as predictable and unpredictable as the science in our own world, while still retaining the peculiarity and strangeness of magic that appeals to both science and fantasy geeks. Lastly, but most importantly, the main message of the show that is being conveyed is also so simple, yet something that I think many of us like frequently forget. Especially today when we feel so much pressure to stay in line or do what's expected of you. Like these days, even though we technically live in a more free and peaceful world than ever, many social and mental issues begin to stick out like sore thumbs. In the past, no one gave a shit because there was other stuff to be worried about, like war or freeing the family and stuff. But in recent human history, and by that I mean the past 200 years or so, you really begin to feel the pressure to stay in line because of stuff like globalization and the internet that kind of convince many to be more open-minded to try new things. But many either give up trying or enter like this like depressive state because like people make fun of them for being weird or different. I felt that my entire life, and even today I still have that sense at the back of my head when I'm around people I'm not as familiar with. Heck, making this very video is making me feel that sensation as well. Like the stuff I made in the past is like Minecraft or like cool cinematic videos, and people who know me personally knows that I'm just this like weird geeky extroverted introvert. And then suddenly I come along and release a video about my review of a gay witch show on Disney+. It's so different. But the show comes along to tell viewers that hey, it's okay to be weird and unique and quirky at times, and heck, maybe all of us have that side of ourselves that we just don't want to reveal in the fear of what others might say. But the fact of the matter is, it's better to present yourself as who you really are and how you really feel. Not just because others will then know how you truly feel, but so that you yourself can also help others be more open-minded to express themselves, because maybe they're just as weird as you. Because screw what other people say who think that like being weird is bad. Like after all, things are only weird because people just aren't familiar with them. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Of course, let me be clear, there are exceptions. Let me be very clear. Like for a long time, like for example, treating slaves like humans was seen as weird, and trying to find ways to fly like birds was also seen as weird. And look at today, most of us can't imagine a world still filled with slaves or a world without planes. So at the end of the day, being yourself is not only doing yourself a favor, but it also does your family and friends a favor, because they will be able to see that you're happy with being who you are and influence them to also feel comfortable with being themselves. And step by step, maybe our world could become a more inclusive and open-minded society in the future, which will accelerate our evolution as a species. You never know. Of course, this all assumes that we don't go extinct from a nuclear war soon. TLDR, be yourself, be free, and most importantly, us weirdos gotta stick together no matter how gloomy things may seem. I give the show an overall rating of 4 out of 5. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, you know what to do down below. And as always, I hope to see you soon. Bye!